Hey, good day. Good
Good
day. I
day.
don't have my good
Tuesday
day hat
again.
on. What's that?
Tuesday already again.
I know, I know. I look forward to every Tuesday. It's
So who are
just
you?
amazing. You know, nervous at the beginning. I was nervous at the beginning, but now it's like I can't wait.
Okay. Our host, Mr. Doug Smith, former
Hey,
NHLer, living on the Ottawa River, fishing in the cold weather now.
caught an 8 pound pickerel just 2 weeks ago. 8 pound biggest pickerel I've
Wow.
ever caught. And I got
Wow.
to bring it up on the show. I'll send it to you. Yeah, I'm in right on the Ottawa River in Ottawa, Canada. Looking forward to sharing on the press box with everybody and hosting the press box. I played I played 607 professional ice hockey games, 535 of them in the L. Um, that's my history. I broke my neck. The whole thing ended with a catastrophic injury in a hockey game. I went headfirst into the end boards. I shattered the fifth and sixth cervical vertebrae in my neck, and I had to start life over again. So that's my story. And our guest that's coming up, you know, plays in a lot of the Paralympic games, and I'm looking forward to hearing this story because I learned how to walk again. This gentleman walks again, but he qualifies as a level 4 to play inside a wheelchair, and so I find that unique because I did it as well. So this is
Mhm.
just amazing. I'm looking forward to Nick.
Yes, me too. And every person that comes to visit us, I learn so much more about me,
Hmm.
right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
going, yeah, okay, Laura, pay attention here. Pay attention. Be
You could
aware.
you
Be
you
conscious.
could you could be a great wheelchair rugby player.
You think?
Anybody can play.
I can hardly get down the front stairs without falling over. I don't think so. What my athletic skills, we could put in a thimble, Doug. This is why I'm such a good student when we have guests because I'm all over it. And I've learned so much from you too.
Well, it's just an amazing story when an individual decides to changes countries first of all, and then he's going to tell us the story about getting involved in sports and staying fit. And
Right.
that's what this is all about. This show's all about getting fit, staying in shape, avoiding the pitfalls that can stop you from being in shape, being conscious, being mindful of other
Hmm.
people. That's what this shows because that's missing in sports sometimes. It needs to be included.
Yes. I'm just going to make sure that you don't have any other programs running, Doug, because we're having a little dip in your internet. So make sure you don't have your emails up or another program running because usually the broadcasts, they take a lot of juice and it can cause some interruptions.
Well,
So
I'm
with
very
it,
sorry to the audience for that happening.
yeah, okay, no worries. Just
There
before,
we go.
okay, just before we bring Nick on, yeah, you can't have your browsers up and looking at other stuff, and we just have to be mindful of that. So I'm going to have you, of course, introduce Nick. I'm just all ears here today. I'm just going to look pretty and listen. And if I have a good question, I'll jump in. And we'll take a little break about every 15 minutes so that people can get their breath and get their thoughts in sync. So good morning. I'll welcome to the stage, Nick.
Hey, Nick, where are you coming in from today?
I'm in Comox, British Columbia, which is on Vancouver Island, right on the left coast.
Oh, beautiful,
I know
beautiful.
I've been there.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Mhm.
I don't think I've been to Comox. We used to have training camp with the LA Kings on Vancouver Island, right in Victoria.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're about 3 hours north of Victoria, which is,
So you're now near Mount Washington then.
yeah, we're about 30 minutes away from Mount Washington.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic.
Nice.
I watched a lot of pictures from Nanaimo as my grandfather just passed away a couple of years ago at 95. He lived in on Vancouver Island in Nanaimo, so I was pleasured by all the pictures that he used to send me. You live in a beautiful part of the world, Nick, and you've been around the world. So tell us a little bit about where it started. Do you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah, of course. As you can probably tell from my accent, I was born in the UK, but we came over to Canada when I was a teenager. My dad had got a job in Toronto, so I came over here with my mum and dad and my three brothers. I got to enjoy life in Toronto for a couple of years, and went to U of T, got a degree in biological sciences, had fun at U of T, and I also joined the military at the same time. So I joined the military at 18. Originally, I wanted to be a pilot. That didn't quite work out. Me and aircrew selection quite a match, so I ended up joining the Navy. I was in the reserves for a few years, became a Mars officer, which is essentially what they call a naval warfare officer. So you run the ship systems, hang out with the captain on the bridge, and make sure that you stay in the wet stuff and stay away from the dry stuff.
And stay calm.
Stay calm, yeah. Stay calm. It definitely helps to maintain a calm demeanor on the bridge. Doesn't always happen, but you try your best. And I really enjoyed being a naval reservist, enjoyed being in the Navy. I made a ton of great friends. I still keep in touch with a bunch of them now.
How did you do that? Here's the question. I'm going to the NHL at 18. You're joining the reserves. You're doing so much. I'm sitting in like posh hotel rooms, going out on the ice and practicing every now and then. That, like going to university, getting a biochemistry degree, and also joining the reserves. Was it just were you just trying to keep in shape, or did you realize what you were getting into?
I came from a pretty strict household, so for me, joining the military was a fairly straightforward transition. And it was, to be honest, it was a financial decision. It was a financial decision. I needed to make some money, and the Naval Reserves paid quite well, paid better than probably working as a waiter or a bartender. And also, I got to go hang out on the coasts, which I really enjoyed, and I'd made this great bunch of friends. In the Navy community, you got to go to sea, you got to wear a uniform, you got to be yelled at quite consistently, and we certainly weren't staying in any fancy hotels. I could show you some pictures of some of our dorms or our bed spaces on ship, and they certainly didn't qualify as fancy hotels. I'll tell you that.
Wow, that's incredible. So from England, you start. You come to Canada. You join the reserves, you do your time, you put your time in, you see a lot of catastrophic situations, you handle the mental stuff, you come back and you get really involved in sort of the Paralympic side of things, the para games, and that just blows my mind. So did you see people when you were in combat in Afghanistan, like suffer tragic accidents that destroyed their life?
Absolutely, yeah. I did 4 tours in Afghanistan.
Oh
I kind of fast forwarded over a few things. I was in the Navy, then I joined the Army and got into the regular force. I did 4 tours in Afghanistan, 1 in Kabul and 3 in Kandahar. And just through going to Afghanistan on those occasions, you see working with a pretty amazing group of people, where you see some pretty amazing feats of human kindness and generosity and determination and resilience, and then you see the depths of humanity and depravity as well. War is not a particularly friendly place. You see the things that people have done to each other over money, religion, love, greed, power, all sorts of vices that people can justify their rationale for committing these acts of violence, and then you deal with the aftermath afterwards. And we had, I think we lost in combat 160 plus Canadian Forces members, and that doesn't even look at the people that took their lives after the fact, because they were dealing with some of the traumatic experiences that they witnessed and were part of in Afghanistan or in any of the combat zones where Canadian Forces members were at. So when I came home, I wasn't doing particularly well, and needed to kind of reach a couple of points. Mainly my wife had said to me, look, you need to get yourself sorted out, because the way you're interacting with us and our family is not sustainable. And I had a couple of really good friends and mentors at the time that had also taken me aside, and I confided them that I hadn't slept very well, and I was dealing with a lot of things in my head. And I'd withdrawn myself from my friends, my family, my loved ones, and work, and I wasn't a good husband, I wasn't a good father, I wasn't a good employee at the time, and I really wasn't taking care of myself. And so I'd allowed myself to slide into this depths of despair, and I was living in this, I reflect back on it now, and it was kind of like being surrounded by cotton wool, and you just can't see anything anymore. You just close yourself off. I closed myself off from experiencing joy, and I was just a pretty unpleasant person to be around. And luckily, I've got an incredibly supportive wife, partner, and she was pretty insistent that I get myself sorted out. And for all the right reasons. We had 2 young children at the time, and I just wasn't really contributing in our family life anymore. And I gloss over some of the other stuff, but I was a pretty unpleasant person to be around. And she had said to me, "Listen, if you don't get yourself sorted out, then I don't know if we're going to be able to continue this fun dynamic anymore." And for me, it took Jen telling me this, and a couple of my colleagues also pulling me aside and saying to me, and I had some great support from mental health professionals and psychiatrists in town, and we worked through a variety of regimes, and I took some medication to kind of level out and come out of the depths of the depression. But PTSD, I was diagnosed in 2015, and it's kind of an insidious thing in that it manifests itself in a variety of different ways. And it's not the same for me as it is for some of my peers and colleagues. And the things that I was experiencing are not exactly the same as they were. So we couldn't always relate, even if we'd had similar experiences. Mm-hmm. And so it took a little bit of time and some personal reflection to really dig into what was going on. And then I found sports along the way, and I went on a camp through an organization called Soldier On, which is basically an organization that is bolted onto the side of the Canadian Forces, and they offer camps and retreats and sporting activities and community activities to go and do something that sort of gets you out of your daily routine. And I was lucky enough to go on a ski camp, and that was kind of the turning point for me, because I came home from that week away skiing, and it was here in Mount Washington, so it wasn't even like I had to go very far away.
Cool.
But it was just enough to really kind of set the tone for change, and that's where I started to really dig into sorting myself out.
Wow, that's an amazing story, opening up like that. Now, how did you stepping into a wheelchair? When was the first time you actually stepped into a wheelchair? And I've been in a wheelchair, so like I'm not being callous or anything, but you're walking, so you had to step into a wheelchair. What was that like that first time? Because I remember what it was like for me. It was not, it wasn't great.
Well, the first time was when I went to one of the Invictus Games training camps in 2019, and we got to play wheelchair basketball, wheelchair rugby, and tri-seated volleyball.
So they had a training camp, or do they still have a training camp? Do you know?
They do, yeah. So
excellent.
Each time,
excellent.
Yeah, it's great. And each time the Team Canada gets together and new people get selected to be put on for Team Canada, you get to go to one of these training camps, and it's really an opportunity to try out the different sports, because we've got people that have never thrown a discus before, never sprinted, and they've decided they want to go and run track and field at the Invictus Games.
Wow!
And so we were given the opportunity to try all these different things, and I will tell you, I'm about 265 pounds and 6 foot tall, and rolling around in a wheelchair is hard work. And we had some other military veterans and serving members that were in wheelchairs and were saying, you don't know how lucky you are to be able to walk up to the chair, sit in it under your own steam, and then be able to get out of it after the fact. Just imagine if you're in the chair all day, every day, and it gives you a whole new appreciation for having, healthy body, or relatively healthy body, and to be able to get in and out of the chairs, because it's hard work. And then you throw playing team sports on top of it, and it's a whole new ball of wax. And I was never the greatest. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. The paras and the quads, they infected you.
They did, and I tell you what, we had a great experience, and we had such amazing coaches. We had a guy named Mike Whitehead who plays for Team Canada on the wheelchair rugby team, was one of their coaches and came and helped us out. And he had a couple of his colleagues come in, and those guys could run circles around us. And I mean, we being military guys, probably like your NHL buddies, everyone's fairly competitive, right? So you start doing wheelchair races and you start doing obstacle courses, and I tell you, the guys that were in wheelchairs could run circles around us, and they're like, now this is where you can see that being in a wheelchair is hard work, but you gotta, like, those guys got massive shoulders and big arms from pushing themselves around and doing
all day.
Yeah.
They're working
Uphill,
out
downhill.
all day.
Yeah, there's never a moment when you're resting. You're always working at it. It's no wonder they've got massive shoulders.
Yeah, so you getting out there and doing that, like, have you had to sacrifice your legs in any way? Like, because it requires practice and effort, and now you're not using your legs as much. So has that had an impact on you?
An impact in that it was a lot of strain on my arms and shoulders. But I mean,
okay.
I talk to the guys that spend all their time in the wheelchairs, and they're like, yeah, you just build up sort of, muscle memory and calluses in your shoulders and arms and hands. My hands were torn to shreds. Actually, yeah, I had to wear gloves and tape up my hands, and small price to pay to be able to play through with the guys, and we had a blast.
Well, over to you, Laurie. I mean, you must have some questions.
Well, I'm just thinking I can hardly get up out of the armchair. Okay.
It's hard work. Like, I remember
right?
we would play the game and sort of hold up our hands afterwards, and everyone's got blisters across their palms from spinning around, and the guys that spend all their time in chairs are like, yeah, man, your hands get torn to shreds at the start, but it's just a fact of life. You build up those calluses and that toughness on your hands, and then you've got to, like, apply that power in the moment to play games, and really try and compete. It takes armchair rolling around to a whole new level.
The day is set. Join us October 12th, 2024 at Kerrigan Arms for our next fundraiser in honor of veterans, the Invictus Games in British Columbia, Canada, and TDC Employment Program enrollment. For more information, email us at info@thedisabilitychannel.ca. Introducing Veteran House Alliance International Monthly 50/50 Raffle. Purchase your ticket today, link on display, and have a chance to win cash and help a great platform supporting veterans.
Well, go ahead, Laurie. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to ask Nick, what inspired you to go and do that in the first place? What was it that, you wanted to either prove to yourself or show yourself or learn from it, or was it part of your journey to heal? Can you tell us a little bit about the why?
It was definitely part of the journey to heal, and it kind of happened. I was incredibly lucky, really. I was in the right place at the right time, and I'm so glad that I was chosen to be on Team Canada. What happened was, as I mentioned, I went and did this ski week at Mount Washington, and it was through Soldier On. And then they sent out a survey afterwards saying, hey, what can we do to improve, and what kind of things did you enjoy? And oh, by the way, in the next few years, we will be assembling people for Team Canada to go to the Warrior Games in the States, and for the Invictus Games, which will be at some location yet to be determined. And to be quite honest, at that point, I was living still in a bit of a bubble. This was 2017. And so I didn't really know anything. I knew who Prince Harry was, but I didn't know anything about the Invictus Games, and I knew nobody that had competed. And so I thought, well, my psychologist at the time had said, well, why don't you just submit your name and see what happens? I mean, what's the worst that happens is that you get a rejection letter saying thanks, but no thanks. So I put my name in, and I got a note back saying, hey, we've actually made the selection for the Warrior Games. Thank you, but would you like to be a part of the Invictus Games team? And so this is what I got the notification, I think, at the start of 2019.
Wow.
And I thought, well, yeah, sounds like a great idea. Now, not realizing that, a few months later, the world was going to shut down with COVID.
No.
But at that time, the thought of joining Team Canada, going to the Invictus Games, competing and playing all these great sports, and, having it as part of a healing journey, or a component of my healing journey, where I'd have to get on the rower, I'd have to get on the bike, and I'd have to get in a wheelchair, or at least learn how to shuffle around for the various team sports. And so for me, it was it's like the music. It was part of a component of my health wellness journey, or my recovery journey and it was also to prove myself that you can have really awful things happening in your life, and you can be in the depths of despair, but you can still figure out a route with the right tools to kind of climb out of it. And so it was a little bit about proving it to myself that I could get through that stuff and I could come out the other side of it.
Almost like a destiny. You had that picture in your head, right?
Yeah, I did. And I mean, I love travel, and so the thought of going to the Hague sounded like a great idea. And so I got to the Hague. I got to the Hague, and then I got COVID. And as part of Team Canada at the time, we signed a document saying that we'd have to go into quarantine. So I got to the Hague. I played a little bit of seated volleyball, and then I spent 10 days in quarantine in a hotel room.
Oh, so sorry. God, that's awful.
It's the funny thing is, it's all part of the cycle of life, because just before that, I'd had a hernia that had kept me pretty incapacitated for about a year and a half. And because it was COVID, they weren't doing any operations it was elective surgery. It was incredibly painful to me, but it was just one of those things. And they said, there's people that are going through a lot worse issues. Can you deal with it a bit longer? And then when we finally got word we were going to the Hague in April, I think it was April 22. I forget the exact date. And so I called up the hospital or the medical clinic and said, "Hey, listen, is it possible I can get this repaired?" And so they managed to get it done. And I had 6 weeks of recovery time to get back on my bike and on the rower.
Really?
And then we went to the Hague. Yeah. Then I got COVID in place, and spent my time watching Netflix, eating Uber Eats, and getting text messages from my friends as they were competing.
Oh, that's
just the way it goes.
Wow.
But you climbed the mountain.
I did. I climbed the mountain, and the best part of it is I came home. I was pretty bummed that my experience at the Hague wasn't quite what I had built it up to in my head. So I applied again for the Invictus Games team again, and I was selected from 650 odd people to be on the Games team to go to Düsseldorf in 2023. So I'm lucky in that I'm one of the few people that has been to, at least in terms of Canadian athletes or Canadian veterans, that I've been to 2 Invictus Games, because generally it's a one and done. So I went to Düsseldorf last year, and the best part about that is that I had a heart attack 6 weeks prior to the games, spent a couple of weeks in hospital, and then went to Germany and competed. I put that in air quotes, but
so you got 2 trips to the top under extenuating circumstances,
Right?
yeah,
my God! Like both times.
Both times were
Wow.
I'll tell you what though, Doug. The thing is, for me, was going to the games the second time. There was no pressure on me because I just spent some time in hospital. The doctors, my cardiologist had said to me, "I don't know if this is a good idea, you going." And I said, "Look, Doc, I'm going to Germany. Medical and healthcare over there is fantastic. Plus, I'm going with all of these medical support staff for Team Canada. So if anything does happen, they're in place and they can help me out." And so I went, and again, I was able to participate more without having any pressure on myself. I could enjoy my 30 other teammates' experiences too, because I'd already sort of been through, I knew what to expect. I wasn't nervous about anything. I had no pressure on myself to get on the podium or perform in a certain manner or be this type of speed or distance. I just got to go and have fun, and I had an absolute blast. It was incredible.
A life memory.
Yeah.
And what are you involved now, like at this particular time, or have you officially retired from the sort of competition side of it?
Yeah, so I'm done as a competitor for Team Canada, but actually the Invictus Games Foundation, which is the overarching organization that manages all these different Invictus Games events, actually does a series of challenges and smaller events throughout the year. So this past weekend, my wife and I got to go to Whistler and Vancouver and ride in the Whistler, the RBC Grand Fondo, which is a bike race that goes from Vancouver up to Whistler. And we did the shorter version that does a route from Whistler up to Callahan Valley and cycles back, which is about 55 kilometers and 850 meters of climbing, which is still nothing to sneeze at. And it was definitely
that's
a lot of fun.
fantastic that they're doing that, right? I mean, and nobody knows about it. They're finding out here, of course, but
Yeah.
you know, it's great to be able to share this, like, you know, what they're doing for their alumni, let's say, you know, the people who want to participate.
The Disability Channel would like to thank our existing sponsors. We really appreciate the support and kindness from the BIAs across the GTA, Ontario, Canada, and our friends in the USA. We love making new friends. Thank you for supporting our existing employment programs.
Yeah, the alumni all got together. We were all awarded Team Invictus Games Foundation riding jerseys, which was fantastic because they stood out in the crowd. You could see, I think there was probably 45 of us across the different races and distances, and you could see us from a mile away. So we had the big, you know, because it's the 10th year anniversary of the Invictus Games Foundation. So we had a big 10, you know, I am 10 on our sleeve. We had the Invictus Games Foundation logo, and then you had these giant, almost fluorescent polka dots on the shirt that, as I said, you could see from some distance. So
That's
it was
perfect.
great. 5,000 riders, and there was 50 of us. We stood out. Yeah.
Wow.
That designer needs to get some type of award or something, right?
Yeah, that's called marketing. Here we are. This is who we are.
Absolutely. And in terms of the Invictus Games that's happening in February, the 8th to the 16th, in the first hybrid games is going to be occurring in Whistler and Vancouver.
Yes, and we're happy to say that the Disability Channel is a part of that. So
Absolutely.
continue.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, they'll be there helping with the broadcasting.
Yes, we will.
I've applied to be a volunteer, so I'm hoping that I can be of some capacity behind the scenes, make sure that things run smoothly, or even, you know, teach. I'm a cross-country ski coach. I coach here at Washington, and I'm involved with a visas program, which helps people with adaptive challenges to get out and get on the snow. So I've said if one of the cross-country ski teams needs some assistance, I'm happy to either coach you how to ski or maybe provide you with some knowledge on how to use the sit skis.
Wow, that is so valuable. You know, that would be such a valuable thing to have at the event if it's not already in place.
Yeah, I think when I was talking to the guys on the weekend, they said there's 55 athletes in wheelchairs. So if any of those guys and girls are skiing, then they'll need to be in a sit ski for either cross country or downhill. And Whistler's got a great program for adaptive skiing, so I know that they'll be well taken care of.
Nice.
Wow, that's fantastic. And
Gee, this sounds like the best kept secret in America, Doug.
Yeah, no kidding. And I qualify because I have no extension strength from my spinal cord injury. So my wife says, if you go and play table tennis with them, and, you know, because I pride myself in my level of table tennis, right? So if I end up at the Invictus Games, I want to hang out with the table tennis team. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, the table tennis, those guys were so competitive. Watching that was, I remember friends having a ping pong table in their garage when I was a teenager. And it was kind of I think it was like, you know, we were playing beer pong on it most of the time, or sometimes there might be a game of, you know, heated contention. But watching the guys play at the Invictus Games in Düsseldorf, it was incredibly competitive. And whether they were in a chair or they were missing limbs or they had some adaptive constraints, it was amazing to watch. And it was so fast paced, just way beyond my beer pong days, that's for sure.
Well, Doug plays every week, don't you, Doug? Or more than once a week?
I do. I pride myself. And you know what, Nick, table tennis is actually the best game in the world for your brain because it builds spatial capacity, which is your ability to predict things, you know, look away and then predict where something's going in motion. And so it speeds up your brain. And when your spatial capacity increases, so does your neurocognitive ability. So you actually get smarter.
Right. That's awesome. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's proven now. University of Montreal, Dr. Faubert at the University of Montreal. I chase these I chase this stuff down. You must too. I mean, you must be going after performance every day of your life, and that's my area. But tell me, like, are you? What are you chasing now?
Now I'm getting ready for the Project Hero stage ride through California in October. So it's basically getting some miles in on my bike, get my hydration dialed in, because we're doing between 80 and 100 kilometers a day on each stage. And there's a little bit of climbing. It's the California coast, so there's definitely going to be some elevation changes. So it's about getting my headspace ready to ride long days in the saddle, and just getting on the bike and staying on the bike and finding that happy groove.
And when you go and do this, are you aligned with the charity then? Do people contribute to what you're trying to accomplish? How do people follow you and watch you? What would they do?
In order to go to the race, you have to fundraise for your spot in the ride. So I had to do a little bit of fundraising, and anyone can join this ride. And depending on whether you're a veteran or first responder or regular civilian, you can all join into the ride. And there's different sort of levels of fundraising you have to accomplish. And so I did some fundraising over the last couple of months, and I had a couple of friends and family members contribute to the ride. And I think there's some sort of a tracking app, but I don't know yet. But I know that they're sending out the pre-ride details in the coming weeks. But I can certainly send you something as a follow-on.
We'll just keep people informed. Like the collective did a great article on you. Like it's a beautiful piece of work. Like you're getting some really great, like your messaging is getting out there, right?
That's great. I love that. That's I mean.
And then
I'm just one guy that went through some challenging moments, and I like to think that if I've been able to be successful with some of the things that I've done, whether it's sit down and play a little bit of music, or get together and be a part of team sports, or volunteer in my community, then hopefully those kind of things can help other people. As I said, my PTSD is different than somebody else's, but some of the things that I've done to work through those challenges may work for somebody else, and I'd love to be able to let people know that, so that if it can help, then even better.
Well, trauma is trauma, right? It will always be with you, but it does not have to control you. And so what we talk about a lot on the show are the mechanisms that help you control and manage the trauma, or else it will take over your life. Mm-hmm. And so you're a perfect example of using the physical to get yourself driven, right? Now, what do you do for the psychological? Do you count the music as the psychological mechanism that you're using?
For me, yeah, it's definitely music.
Okay.
I pick up my guitar, every day, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes, just to strum through a couple of songs. I actually have a couple of buddies that I'll strum with now and again. But for me, as I said, you can't focus on all the monkey chatter that's going on in my head when you've got a guitar in your hands and you're trying to figure out how to pluck that next piece.
Right.
So it blocks it out. You have to be present. You have to focus on that piece. And it just gives me 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes of clarity every day. And that's just enough to kind of push away some of the negativity that may be encroaching, or maybe I just reacted badly to something, or I had to smell something or heard something. I don't do very well with loud noises or bangs anymore, and maybe I'm getting old, but it can set me off, and it shakes me up for a little bit. So
it's like meditation, huh? Yeah, like meditation. It takes the chatter away. They call it. It's actually called duality. Mm-hmm. Okay. So duality is the actual story and the story you tell yourself. Mm-hmm. And so the music reduces duality because it gets rid of the story you tell yourself, and you just get into the now. Mm-hmm. Makes sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
So I've learned a couple of things from some veterans that we've talked to, and some veterans that I'm working with. This was very interesting. So, Doug, I don't know that I've shared this with you, but I'd love to have you guys your feedback on this. Okay, so, and I've worked with first responders, RCMP, jail guards. I mean, anybody who's had those traumas, right? And now veterans, which I'm honored to do. And thank you for your service, Nick. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Then I interviewed a veteran, had him on the show. He was very lovely too on a Thursday. And he said, I don't call it that. I call it PTSI, post-traumatic stress injury. It's not a disorder. It's not a dysfunctional psychological disorder like schizophrenia or those other mental illnesses. So he calls it, he said, I prefer, and by the way, he wrote a book, Real Life Stories of a Paramedic. It's almost a comedy, he said, but he was in the military. So PTSI. And then a third person that I spoke with called it PTSG, post-traumatic stress growth. I really like that one. So I don't think I had shared that with you yet, Doug, because I hadn't spoken with you. But isn't that interesting? People with their own perspective and creating their own labels on their situation rather than always maybe buying in to the clinical aspect of something. So what are your thoughts on that? Which one is your favorite? Post-traumatic stress, I'm doing a survey. Post-traumatic stress disorder, post-traumatic stress injury, or post-traumatic stress growth?
Well, it's a symptom. Okay. So PTSD is a symptom of trauma.
Yeah.
So you have to look at if it's a symptom, what best applies to a symptom, because you don't want to make it they try to make it a disorder or a thing or an actual
label.
Disease. It's not a disease. It's a symptom of trauma.
Right.
And so then I would think about, the options that way. That's my feedback.
I love it. What about you, Nick? What are your thoughts?
For me, it's growth. It's the growth one. I've heard that before, or maybe I heard it on a podcast. But for me, it was all about finding the things to help me grow through those circumstances.
And it is a type of growth. Yeah, you can't deny it, because it's not an easy path. It's not a comfortable path, and that's the way not to get growth. So yeah, that's a great term, and it fits. It fits, right?
Yeah, I think somebody had said that it's life is defined by the challenging conversations you'll have with other people. Well, dealing with PTSD or PTSI is about having those challenging conversations with yourself and recognizing that sometimes you have to ask for help, because I certainly wasn't able to deal with what was going on in my head and my body alone, even though I was trying to. And I'm fairly stubborn and driven, and so I just thought, I'm fine. I'll deal with myself. Everything's fine. And then I had a psychiatrist say to me, like, well, would you try and remove your own, infected tooth? Why do you think you can deal with this complex mental health challenges by yourself? There's no way. You wouldn't try and reset your arm on your own. So why seek help? And that was kind of the light bulb moment for me to be like, you make a good point, Doc. You're right. There's no way I can deal with all this stuff.
Finally, somebody traps you into realizing what the situation is.
Yeah. Well, I used to be queen of denial. Perhaps you were the king of denial. Just say. People would say.
Then I'm the prince. Then I'm the prince of denial.
Yeah, that would go there. Actually, we did a great show yesterday on cancer surviving and how that worked for a colleague of ours and myself. And the old Laurie, I said, how would the old Virginia have handled that? She said, well, I would have went to the bar and got drunk and probably killed myself. And she said, what would the old Laurie have done? I would have went, oh, I'm fine. Oh, I don't know. I don't need to go to the doctor. I can handle that. And it's nothing serious. I come from a really healthy family. Justification up the wazoo, I'm afraid, gentlemen. The old Laurie, I'd be dead now because it wouldn't have been treated and I'd be gone. So I was queen of denial. That was me. How's your marriage going? How's your marriage going, Laurie? Oh, it's just great. I couldn't have married anybody better. Until it all fell apart like a $3 watch.
Well, there you go. So I got a story about denial for you. So
okay, I knew you would.
I mentioned I had this heart episode. So I was skydiving with some friends when it occurred. So luckily my chute had already opened. I just happened to land in some trees when I woke up. So I got back and got home, and my wife said, look, we have to go to the hospital. You have to get checked out. And I was like, I'm fine. I survived the jump. Like, everything's fine. And because I was jumping with military buddies, everyone was like, "Hey man, good jump! You landed in the trees. Well done. Good emergency response skills." And in my head, I was like, "Yeah, everything's fine." I felt a little bit off, and then so that was on a Friday. So on the Saturday, I took it easy. And my wife's like, "I really think we should go to the hospital. You need to get checked out." And I was like, "No, I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm fine." And then on Sunday, I get on my bike to do a training ride because, again, I've got 6 weeks to go to the games. And I know how much power I can push out over time and my heart rate. And so I was pretty well attuned to what I can do on the bike. I sat on the bike, and after about 5 minutes, my heart rate went from 105 to 165 with no change in effort. And I was like, I really don't feel very good. So my wife came home, and after the ride, because I did the ride on my own at home alone,
Of course.
the genius that I am, because everything's fine, right? Everything's fine. She comes home, she's like, "Hey, you don't look very good." And I said, "I don't feel very good. And this just happened." She said, "Right. So we go to the hospital," and I was like, "Okay, I think it's probably time to go and get the professionals to have a look." And we got to the hospital, and I told the emergency surgeon this, or the ER doctor, sorry. And he said, "Today's Sunday. You just said this happened on Friday. So what took so long?" And my wife's looking at him like, because he's in denial. And he said, "Okay, well, I'll be back in a minute." And he comes back with the internist, who looks at me and is like, "You're an idiot. Why would you wait 48 hours to come and tell us this story?" And like, the story in itself is insane, but you waiting 2 days and having an exercise moment is even more insane. What were you thinking? And so anyway, so I spent 2 weeks in hospital. And they tried to figure out what happened. But yeah, so there you go. There's a little bit of denial.
Well, I knew you were the king of denial. I just could tell.
So you've been through this and you've realized these things, but have you corrected them? And after you correct them, are you helping other people disarm them?
A little bit.
Okay.
So I've certainly modified my my diet and intake and exercise level to try and
okay, you got a central nervous system, 3 central nervous systems. One's in the gut. I was going to ask you about that. I'm amazed you brought it up. It was in my head. Go ahead. Tell us about what you're doing.
And I've done a little bit of public speaking to try and spread the word that, exercise and meditation, whether it's guitars or reading or whatever it is good for the headspace and good for the body in general. And then doing something in the community. So I volunteer as a ski coach up on Mount Washington, and I help train kids to be cross-country skiers. And so that's just provides just like a little bit of perspective that takes me outside of my own, closed off headspace, and allows me to go and experience. And also it allows me to really appreciate having healthy kids and healthy family and healthy relationships. And we set boundaries for the kids, and we teach them how to ski. We teach them how to compete, how to be athletes, and how to be supportive teammates as well, which I think is really important for kids to learn at a young age. So I think I'm not doing everything I can, but I'm doing a little bit more than I was before.
Well, community. It sounds like you're expanding your community, locking it down. And one day you're going to write it down. I'm sure you are, right? Story, science, solutions. I bet you'll write it down. It's if you ever want to take it and put it in a book, I'll show you how to do it in 20 minutes.
Okay. Well,
yeah, it'd be my pleasure. I did it with my first book, and it's fairly straightforward when you break it down, because your story's phenomenal. I think it's almost like we're watching the mission that you're going to create for yourself. Your life mission is evolving by doing all this work, right? And then I just feel we're watching it evolve.
Well, thank you. I've never really thought about it like that. I have had my one of my therapists actually said I should write down some of the stories, because I was telling her about some of the circumstances that kind of led to me being here in the first place. And she's like, Have you written that down? Have you got it stored somewhere so that you can refer back to it when you're old and senile? And I laughed at the time, but she made a good point, because my first tour was in 2005. It's nearly 20 years ago. And even though I still keep in contact with some of the guys from that tour, a lot of the finer details of just our daily interactions and some of the chaos that surrounded us is starting to fade. So it's probably getting close to time to recording and writing some of that stuff down.
There's a first thing you do, the first step. I tell everybody if they want to write a book, the first book is 52 pictures. You got to find the top 52 pictures in your life. Okay. And they're not 53, not 51, 52. It's 52 weeks. Then you'll have 52 weeks of communication. And then after you identify the 52 pictures, you write 140 characters under each, and then you put them in chronological order, and that's your first book. You'll finish it, because there's a lot more to say than 140 characters about the top 52 pictures in your life.
Right.
And that's what people want to see. In my opinion, they want to see a picture and they want to see a story. And then after that, I shifted to science and the trauma code, and anybody could do it. Like just add the scientific piece to it after, but put the story first.
Okay.
So Doug, I'm working on a book right now. Did I tell you? Yes.
Oh, yes.
working on
I
a
knew
few
you were
that-
dabbling.
Yes, but my first one will be 100 Shades of Dysfunction.
Oh, I love it. I want to buy the first one.
Because a year ago, Nick, we were evacuated from our home for 2 weeks because of wildfires here in Alberta. I live in Alberta,
Right.
northern Alberta. So we're in this little camper with some friends, 4 dogs and 4 adults for 2 weeks. And we had 10 minutes to get out. So if you had 10 minutes to get out, what would you take? So that's what I did. My husband and I and our dog. And then we jump in our truck and there's no gas available in the town. It's all been sold out. So anyway, I'm in this camper and I'm thinking, okay, I brought my journal. I brought my laptop. What am I going to do? And within 40 minutes, I had written down 100 words to describe dysfunction. And so I'm going to treat it like being in denial, Nick. Like that's dysfunctional for me, right? And some of the things that people don't recognize that they do every day that are totally dysfunctional and not supportive. I have 100 of them.
and the amazing thing about your work, Laurie, and I've been through Laurie's courses, is they turn the picture on you very effectively, and you have to think about them when you're on your own, where you can usually escape. There's no real escape because she doesn't make it about her at all. Like the whole thing's about you. So it's fun. I encourage anybody, even you, Nick, to enjoy her work.
Yeah, and I just have a new veteran as of yesterday, so I'm really excited to work with him.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm here to help you with making it
Yes.
simple and getting your story out there. My mission is just about helping people do that. Like if I find somebody that wants to get their story out and it's going to help a bunch of people, why not give them the kit? Here's a kit. Just go do it.
Here's your kit. Well, being on the show too, and I told Nick I'd be happy to send him an MP4 of the show.
Oh yeah.
At the end of the show. I like to do that for our guests, and that's our thank you for being on the show. And then you have your own private record as well of what we've talked about, and that's part of your story too. So yeah.
That's very good. And then
having me on. I mean,
wow, it's
great to be able to talk
pleasure.
about this stuff.
Yeah, like what are you so you're doing stuff now with kids, but not around the Invictus Games or stuff, or because it's not for kids, but you're investing your time with kids on the ski hill, which keeps your legs, right? Because you're on your own skis, right? When you're up there.
Yeah, balance,
That's
coordination, strength.
There you go.
All of that good stuff.
Yeah, and then you're raising money for. Are you working with Invictus at all right now?
I've done a couple of speaking engagements for the Invictus Games program, and I've helped them. I've met with a couple of the investors groups in Vancouver that were looking at investing in and contributing to the well-being of the game and some of the veterans that are going to be coming. So I don't know if I think there will probably be some more events as we get closer to the games, because I know people will start getting more energized. And after being in Vancouver last week and seeing, the placards up and some of the signage around it, it's great that there is some excitement building in Vancouver. So I'm happy to contribute in any way I can.
Wow, there should be some introductions maybe made to you being one of the speakers. I mean, you're a previous games person. You're able-bodied. You're articulate. You've been through like, so much trauma and recovered and come out the other side. Like, I feel you would be an excellent person to be positioned somewhere during the games to be able to tell your story, or to go into the dressing room, maybe in some situations. Who knows? But I'm gonna be putting your name in the hat for that for sure. You're super valuable, Nick. Super valuable.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
for me, the Invictus Games, Soldier On, True Patriot Love, these organizations that really helped me in my challenging times. I'm so happy to talk about my experience, to hopefully find other people that can find some solace and realize that there's other organizations out there that can help them through it, because we feel so incredibly alone, and then you realize as you start going through some of these events that there's other people that have gone through similar circumstances and are having some similar challenges, and they found some benefit through sport or through community involvement or through being outside, or whether it's hiking or kayaking or skydiving, whatever it is, these great events that can bring people together and provide them with an outlet or a venue to talk about and realize that there's other people in the community that are going through the same things.
So anybody can call you then, Nick. Like, if I'm sitting at home right now and I've lost a limb, and I'm like, I'm making a decision at that point whether I'm going to live or die, right? And they want to reach out to you, you can open up a whole world that doesn't exist to those people now. So that's the people. That's who I want to get this in the hands of. Spread it there, because you can just guide them to the right network that can support them. Not everybody's going to want to do it physically. I mean, that's okay, but there's nothing negative that they're going to get from the experience. That's the point.
Yeah, and I mean, I tell you, over the last couple of years, we've certainly lost a lot of guys and girls that have gone through the various experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan that didn't find an outlet for their rage, their anger, their sadness, their depression. They didn't find some of the things that I was fortunate to find at the right time in the right place. So if I can help them discover these things, I'm happy to talk to people.
And you don't have to be involved as an athlete. There's a supporting role too, right? There's so many supporters that are required for this environment to make this a success and to make the organization successful. So, don't pigeonhole yourself at all. Like, if you're listening to the show, just be open, right? Take a look.
Yeah. And Nick, I would love to invite you to be on our Thursday Vets show, down the road. Because this Thursday we have two guests on the show, and you guys probably know these people, but I won't mention their names. But one of them is one of the original co-founders of Canadian Walk for Veterans. That's one of our guests. And the other is a program officer with True Patriot Love Foundation. So they're our guests on Thursday. And, that would be another place for us to be able to position you to share more information about, what you're doing. And yeah.
That's great. Yeah. I'll be, as I said, I'm happy to talk about my experience.
Okay.
And if it helps somebody, then please let me know.
Right
now, we've got a couple of minutes, and two things. Where can people find you?
Oh, yes.
And
email is best, maybe?
Yeah.
Email or LinkedIn is probably easier.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn.
And the experience that, being in the forces and in the reserves, your most positive experience that you've had, with the reserves, with the military, just do you have that in your mind? The thing that, you'll always remember that was amazing for you and said, hey, I made the right decision here.
It was probably joining the human intelligence teams, going through selection for that, and then making it onto the teams. I work with a group of people that were also selected and highly motivated and keen and interested and able to have disagreements and talk through it. So being a part of the human teams was probably one of the highlights of my military career. And I'm glad I tried out for it and made it through the selection process and got to deploy a couple of times. It was very interesting, very intellectually stimulating, and I work with some hilarious and amazing people too.
Are you gonna get asked to sit on any boards that are representing AI from what you learned from that space? Are you contributing to the AI world and the forwarding of that?
Actually, when I retired, I went back to school into computer science and cybersecurity. So I don't contribute directly, but I have a couple of friends in Vancouver in that AI space. Actually, one of the guys, we've been talking about co-authoring a book about some of the skills that we learned in the human teams and applying it otherwise. But that's something for the future.
Next, we're going to talk more about that, because they're discovering what AI does not have so that it can't compete with humans, and we'll talk about that another time. But I look forward to having that discussion, because your work's going like this, but then it's going to go like this. It's amazing,
Yes.
through self-actualization. People will realize. Thanks so much, Nick. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thanks for listening to me. It's been great talking with you both. Thank
you so much. All right. Well, we better say goodbye. Our time is up, and we'll be connecting with. I'm definitely going to be seeing Doug again, and I'm still waiting for my invitation to go to Ottawa and fish. But that'll be next year.
You'll be here. Ice fishing.
Oh, yes, we could do that. Okay. See you later, gentlemen. Bye for now.
Have a great day. Have a great day, gang.
Thanks.
Four in the morning, and I raise my weary head, get up and make my coffee, kiss the wife and kids in bed, put on my clothes, get in the car, head down that lonely street, wondering what today brings and who I'm gonna meet. Arrive at the station, put on all my gear, talking with my buddies, maybe later we'll go for beers, checking through the daily briefs before I head away, praying I'll make a difference in someone's life today. Stop cartel mules hauling people and guns with different drugs to harm loved ones, making money, that's their one and only goal. Process several hundred immigrants who came to America to get a chance for a better life. We give them control, we're the U.S. Border Patrol. Up in D.C., playing political games, not caring who their policies hurt. We're not people, only names. And even though our job is vilified and cursed upon, I'll stand my ground to protect this land for you and everyone. Several miles through the brush and dirt to carry somebody who got hurt, climbing a fence and fell to the ground below. Saved a family from a foreign land who tried to swim across the Rio Grande. Moments like these really touch your soul. We're the U.S. Border Patrol. We seem strong and courageous, but we're hurting deep inside. We feel like we don't make a difference, no matter how hard we try. I relive all the day's events when I try to sleep at night. But no matter what, I'll never give up this fight. fight. Perform CPR on a casualty from a bailout truck trying to flee, and missed a turn and hit a light pole. In my shift, head home and hug the family. My wife can sense something's wrong with me. This job really takes a mental toll. But tomorrow I'll give it another go. I'm a U.S. Border Patrol.